I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here.
Well, good morning, everyone. In fact, I have written here, great risings, everyone. I love that idea of just rising up together, being in this really great space. All right. Well, when I started writing this, I thought to myself, well, hello, June. When did you get here? Does anyone else feel like it just boom was June? And I thought June is just like a flower blooming. It's just like one day the flower is closed, and then the next morning it's a full bloom. And here we are. And it's so great to just kind of talk about what's happening in this experience and in this idea that we are starting for the power of imagination. And I kind of want to dive into that today. I know we've already started that a little bit, but before I dive into that, I first need to just check in with you all who were here last week. Last week you were asked to practice being in the power of presence. How did that go for you guys? Anyone have any experiences that felt good, profound, anything more connected? Yeah.
I wasn't here, but I listened online.
Oh, nice.
I get points for that.
Yeah.
I had a friend come over, and we were talking about another friend who is very ill right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had like really strong eye contact and hung in there even when the tears were on our face, and it was really profound.
Nice. So we have this profound connection with one another, and hopefully if you hadn't had a lot of presence or power of presence that was in top of mind last week, hopefully you carry that opportunity again into this week. And what's really interesting about that to me is I was sitting there going, okay, being really present and having like this focus on folks. And then I talk about the power of imagination. And I don't know about you, but I used to get in trouble at school for being in the daydreaming world. Natalie, come back. Why are you looking out the window? The class is up here. It's like, oh. And it was because there was this, actually, I feel like it was a broken thought of understanding in that me focusing outside and imagining was actually bringing the lesson more to life, because in my imagination, I could see what they were talking about better. And so it was so interesting because my focus wasn't always necessarily split. In fact, the power of imagination actually brought me into the presence even more. I was experiencing things beyond the world of appearances. And in Unity, we often use this phrase, and if you're kind of new to Unity or maybe you forgot what this means, but we talk about the world of appearances is what our physical senses experience. It's also like what we experience as like culture, society, media buzz, all of those things that are kind of outside of us in this world of appearances. And today I wanted to talk about imagination is vision beyond appearances. And it's interesting because what happens when you start visioning beyond the appearance in front of you? What starts happening in your mind? And I didn't have this in here, but I was listening to this really great speaker. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you haven't heard of him, I highly suggest you check him out. And the reason I like him is because he starts talking about the physicalities of the brain. And he talks very candidly about how all of us have approximately 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. But we don't have necessarily 60 or 70,000 new thoughts a day. In fact, our propensity as humans is to repeat the same thoughts every day. So I got up here today and I thought, I do a similar prayer because I really like the prayer. And I thought, sometimes I riff, sometimes I don't. How am I thinking differently? And he talks about if you want to imagine and bring forth, and Arnie kind of talked about this today already. Thank you, Arnie, for queuing me up. if you want to create this new life, you're not really doing that when you're thinking the same thoughts you thought the day before. You're not really doing that if you keep repeating the same thought patterns, because it is our thoughts that have power in this imagination. It is our thoughts that have power in creating new aspects of our life. And it's funny because I heard the youngest person in the room today call herself old, and I just laughed because I thought, well, that's a possibility. And it's funny how we think that way, and I'm not faulting her at all. At all. Because how many of us think the same things over and over? But we want something new and imaginative to happen. And so I woke up to the best text today. Julie and I have been kind of on this journey together. And Abraham Hicks talks about, if you're not familiar with who Abraham Hicks is, check her out too. But she talks about holding a thought for 17 seconds can start changing the shift in the momentum of the thoughts. And so I woke up to a text from Julie this morning that said, "Good morning. Make sure that you use your 17 seconds this morning wisely. Get up and think something new. Get up and think something that you desire for 17 seconds. And so I sat on the edge of my bed and I thought about what I wanted new. And before I knew it, 40 seconds had gone by and I thought, I'm knocking this out the park. And it felt so good to put my feet on the floor and realize that I was already manifesting what I wanted and thinking those new thoughts. And so I just kept challenging myself about how do you keep thinking new thoughts? And then I really like how candid Joe Dispenza is, because he says, when you're thinking new thoughts, it's fun at first. But then the body really likes repetition, because the body then can project what's going to happen. And when the body isn't able to project what's going to happen, it starts sending chemicals to your brain that says, hey, let's get back into that old routine. I'm more comfortable there, and I'd like to repeat that old way of thinking. And so we do that because our body literally starts giving us the chemical messages to go back to the old way. But if you stay in your power of imagination and think new thoughts and invite old thoughts to float away. How many people got up today and thought, I'm getting old? I mean, I look around this room, the youngest person in the room thought that. And I don't know, if you're not thinking that, congratulations. If you are thinking that, I invite you to use your power of imagination to rocket yourself somewhere else. I cannot pay these people enough to gear me up like this. There is a power going on. There's an excitement. I literally have goosebumps right now from the idea of thinking new thoughts. And it really excites me when I look at my dear friends and community and I witness you thinking new thoughts. It's so exciting to get that buzz going. And it's interesting how, as Unity Community, we have been traversing a lot of transitions. And you would think it would just get easier and easier. And we were like, this is an old hat. We know how to do this. And maybe my body knows how to go through transition. Yep, that's what we're thinking, right? Thanks for being honest, Jan. So the thing is that we do have power over this body. Even when it tries to take that power back and return us to the old habits and the old ways of thinking, it's a new thought to think you have power, that you are empowered by your imagination. In fact, it takes a lot of audacity to be creaking in your knees, going upstairs, walking too far, and going, my body is healing itself. It is a masterful piece of healing. And I welcome this beautiful energy to come in and heal me now. That's a different way to think than going, okay, well, I gotta get going in. It's a totally different energy. Yeah. And thinking new thoughts, like I love Diane brought in a book about good news. What was the name of that book again, Diane? Beautiful News. Love it. Oh, there it is. And I love this about Diane because she's a librarian, and librarians have a wonderful way of going, look at this new book, which is somebody else's new thought, and you can constantly get new ideas from books. I went to the library this week for a meeting, and I was like, I love it here. Just walking among the stacks, I felt good. But there is this power of imagination happening for you. And it takes a commitment to yourself, to loving yourself, to have the audacity to embrace new thoughts, to challenge yourself. Have I thought this thought yesterday? I thought this thought 10 minutes ago. Maybe I should think a new thought. Well, what's the new thought? Every one of us here is going to drive or ride home at some point. And how many people do a lot of good thinking when they're driving? Some of us are trying to stay on the road, but I do a lot of good thinking too. And when I'm thinking, I realize I'm repeating thoughts. And when I start repeating thoughts, I challenged myself recently, just what would be a new thought? And then I realized, the body of Natalie, the personality of Natalie, she doesn't even have to think of these new thoughts. She can simply tune in and align with this greater thing we call divine mind. And divine mind is happy to invite you to new thoughts. It's a different energy that way. When you're pushing up the hill, like, I gotta have a new thought. What's my new thought gonna be? I don't know what my new thought's gonna be. And then you go, wait a minute. Divine mind is saying, here's a new thought. Just accept this new thought. Just receive this new thought. And when you get out of resistance of new thoughts, I had trouble going to sleep last night because I was out of resistance of new thoughts. And new thoughts were flooding in. And I had this great experience of feeling rejuvenated and good with that. And you know what I did this morning? I still did all the good things, like with the 17 seconds and all of that. And then I was driving here and I got grumpy. And I said, well, I'm tired. And I thought to myself, Holy Spirit, activate. Holy Spirit, activate. I thought of myself as going, okay, you have an opportunity to think a new thought. And when I was a kid, I loved using my imagination. I would have such a great time doing that. And I loved the idea of using my imagination as an adult. Nobody thought to put floor lamps on tables and try to light the middle of the theater. And I was like, you know what? We need light right here. How are we going to do that? We did it. It's helpful. It came out of an imaginative thought. It came out of not resisting the space and saying, how do we go with it? What's available to us? What's part of the power of imagination is allowing your resistance to relax, is getting out of the resistance and surrendering to what's possible. And the body is going to do this wonderful thing, and it was built in to protect you, which to me is also divine mind indicator. Some divine mind put in protective gear in this body. And that is that there's an inner critic that says, well, is that a good idea? And it starts judging it. Well, I don't think that's true. I don't see any proof. I don't vision any proof in my periphery. But what we know as a unity community is we can vision beyond appearances. We don't even need to know that as a unity community. You knew that as a child. You're in a situation you don't like, you could imagine it differently. And you picked up toys and you were like, this is my sword. Or this is my great pen to be writing. Didn't have to have the ink. You imagined it. And it's still our job today, really. No, our job is probably not the right way to say that, but it's our opportunity to be imaginative now. And so when I started thinking about imagining beyond vision, this old story came up to me, and it's not my story. It's a story I heard on a podcast called Invisibilia. And they tell this story about this young man. When he was born with, and soon after he was born, he got some kind of infection in his eyes. And they surgically removed his eyes as an infant. And so he never knew really what it was like to have eyes, the physical mechanisms that we all rely on to see. And so when he became a toddler, he didn't realize he should have eyes. He just found a bookcase and thought, this seems like a fun thing to climb. So he climbed the bookcase. And his mother, wanting to protect him, thought, I need to get him off of that. He can't see. And she stopped herself and she thought, you know what? I can parent the child that I know in my mind as a seeing child, or I can parent the child that is here, that is seeing in his own way. And so she decided to kind of let him be who he is. And when he was 5 years old, she found him up a tree in the backyard. And instead of being fearful, she said, do you know how to get down? He said, I'll figure it out. I figured out how to get up. I'll figure out how to get down. And then as he got older, one day, he found a bicycle leaning against the back fence. And he got on the bicycle. And he taught himself how to ride the bicycle by keeping one hand on the fence. And so he could ride the fence line. And then he noticed if he starts making these clicking sounds with his tongue, he had such an advanced hearing, he could hear where the wall was. And pretty soon he took his hand off the wall and he started riding the bike based on these clicking sounds because he could hear what they were bouncing off of. And then he decided, the backyard is such a closed space. The street's right over there, I can hear it. And he took the bike to the street, and he rode the bike down the street. And he did this by making clicking sounds and hearing what was around him. And so they started to call him Batman, because that's how bats do it. They echolocate. They make a sound, and they hear what's coming back, and that's how that happened. And so this was amazing to sighted people. Sighted people were completely shocked by this because we're used to seeing with our eyes. We're used to seeing the appearance of things. But he was seeing in a different way. So different that they sent him to blind school. He did miserable. He's like, you're teaching everyone these disabilities. I'm not disabled. I see just fine. So he started a blind school for himself and for other children, teaching them this echolocating, teaching them how to really traverse their world seeing differently, not living with a disability. And so it was very interesting to me to hear this story. And then it wasn't only interesting to me, but it was interesting to researchers. And so researchers kind of said, hey, you're doing something very different here. We'd like to check out what your brain does when you are seeing. And so they did. They hooked him up and they looked at his brain. And when you hear something, there's a certain part of your brain that lights up. And when you see something, a certain part of your brain lights up. And he could see in the sense that the certain part of his brain that should light up when he's seeing something lit up when he was echolocating. He could see beyond appearances. And I loved that story because I thought, wow, how amazing. What a new way of thinking about something. What a new way of looking, literally seeing something differently. And so Batman rides his bike in city traffic to this day. And he is very successful. clearly, because he's still alive. He's very successful in navigating and using this echolocating, and he's also very good at teaching other blind children, people who don't have the way that you and I mostly see. It has a way of teaching them. And so I'm watching this like Joe Dispenza piece I was telling you about earlier, and I got connected to another example, and it was this idea of seeing with our highest self. Seeing with our highest self, our higher consciousness. And so they were doing research on this, and they took young children, and they were teaching them with a blindfold on. And this wasn't a blindfold where, you could cheat by kind of looking underneath. They had like suction cups to their eyes, like it was like a serious blindfold. And they were sitting in a circle, and they started with colors, and they would hold up a card, and they would say, red, yellow, green. They weren't wrong. They were right every time. They had been practicing for a while, and so then they took these children with the blindfolds, gave them a book to read, and the skeptic mind is already kicked in, right? You're going, now how did they do this? They memorized the book. I'm on to them. Your inner critic is already thinking this through, right? They took the book, they gave the same book to each child, and they said, okay, you read the first sentence. They're wearing the blindfolds. He reads the first sentence. Okay, the next one, Susie, you read the second sentence. She read the second sentence. Now, what I was seeing was a practice product. They had been practicing at this. They hadn't been practicing with the same book, but these children were teaching themselves how to see from their higher consciousness. Now, you may be amazed by this, but this has been going on in this country since the Cold War. This is one of the CIA special projects that they used to do something called remote viewing. And one of the ways we spied on our enemy was actually to teach ourselves how to see with our higher consciousness and this remote viewing. And it's a practice that they've been doing for a long time, and they had a lot of success with it. And I thought, that is amazing. It's amazing because I haven't thought that way before. It's not amazing to people who are doing it. Especially not amazing to people who get out of their own way and believe it's possible. They just accept that it's possible. They quiet the inner critic that is saying, you can't do that. They quiet that, and they believe they can. And so I'm sitting on the couch last Sunday after everything, and I'm sitting with Julie, and we were watching some of the show, and I was like, okay, Julie, what am I thinking? And she's relaxed on the couch, and she's like, I don't know. I think you're thinking about a heart. And I was like, I was thinking about the Jack of Hearts. So I was like, all right, I've got to be good at this too. Julie, what are you thinking? I got nothing. Relax, Natalie. You're thinking about dog sleds. She's like, no. Green beans, no. All these things were coming to me, but it was because I was struggling because I kept thinking to myself and asking myself the question, what would Julie be thinking? Instead of simply relaxing and letting it come to me. Turns out Julie was thinking about bunnies. I had no way of that. I was nowhere near. But Julie was really close. And I thought, what a great little experiment. What a fun thing to try. Get together with someone and see if you can read their mind. See if you can vision beyond their appearances. See if you can relax yourself and quiet that inner critic enough to allow the power of your imagination to boost your living, to give to you new thoughts that manifest the world you love. Not because you're like, I gotta think about the world I love, or tomorrow's gonna suck too. Or, no. Come from a place of, I accept the world as it is. I know there's great power here. I feel it. I got goosebumps again. I know there's something calling to me that's giving me new thoughts. What amazing new thought could be coming to me right now? I want you to take a minute right now. Close your eyes. I want you just to invite new thoughts to come in. Don't have it solve anything. Don't have it address any problems. Just invite new thoughts to come in. That right there, that view that you have from your imagination, is a view we like to call the mountaintop view. Seeing from a higher place than where you already are. Some people call it the upper room view because it denotes the time of Jesus sitting in that upper room where the world of appearances looked very grim, but he still came at it from a higher sense of consciousness. We have Christ consciousness. We have our own upper rooms to embrace new thoughts and to engage in this power of imagination. It's not just for kids. Well, maybe it is for the kid in all of us. There's something very powerful there to be imagined. Imagination is visioning beyond appearances. It is our power to get the view from the mountaintop of our own understanding. It is our ability to connect with our God within and visualize in connection. How many people thought when they closed their eyes just now it was just them in their own head? Guess what? We were all here together. So your thoughts don't just affect you. They affect all of us. It's a beautiful opportunity of connection. Do you know how happy I was when Julie said, I'm thinking hearts, and I thought, I'm thinking Jack of Hearts. It was an amazing feeling, not for her being right. I mean, that was great, but it was more of this feeling of like, oh, we've connected. We can walk around in the world we live in. We can be out in this world of appearances, and we can still be in our mountaintop view, and we can connect to one another. And if you're resisting that, invite yourself to a new experience of surrender. Invite yourself like you're going to the best birthday party. You know the gifts are already there. Invite yourself to surrender to this beautiful power of imagination. Invite yourself to think new thoughts. And when you find yourself repeating old thoughts, don't get down on yourself and be like, oh shoot, I'm doing it again. Use that as a springboard cue to be like, oh, I just thought an old thought. Congratulations, Natalie. Now you know you can think a new thought. You've only got 65,000 more to go. You can think new thoughts the whole rest of this day. In fact, if you go to the old West End Festival, that's a great way to do that. There's a lot of people inviting you into their imagination there. But you can do it anywhere. Anywhere. It takes a lot of trust in yourself and in this power of imagination. And it takes practice raising your vibration, because when you raise your vibration, you do reduce your resistance. You raise vibration of love, and it immediately reduces any thoughts of fear. You raise a vibration of gratitude, and you cannot hold the negative. It will fall through your fingers like sand. When you are committed to this power of imagination and committed to this beautiful sense of surrender and gratitude and love, that is the product that comes forward. So many times we get so deeply distracted by what's in front of us. And when we're deeply distracted, what's interesting is it's not a bad thing. In fact, magicians use it quite effectively. That's why we think there's magic. They've distracted us to look over here, and here's the coin. They've distracted us with what's in front of us, and here's the real truth. We live in a world where we're distracted by the world of appearances, but the truth is right there. And when you find it, it feels like magic. That's amazing power. So this week, I want you to get present to your imagination. I would like for you to get present to thinking and inviting yourself to think new thoughts. Maybe take some time in the morning when you get up and you first put your feet on the floor to do something for 17 seconds. That is not a lot of time. And then you can do the next 17 seconds. And then the next. And if you eat the same thing for breakfast every morning, maybe you switch it up, one thing. And if the breakfast can't be changed, maybe you think a new thought while you're eating that breakfast. Something new. Challenge yourself to be this high vibration, to be in connection with it. It's funny, when I was finishing this, I kept thinking about this meme that's on Facebook or TikTok or wherever it is. But it's this funny meme that says, always be yourself, unless you can be Batman, be Batman. It means a little something different now, right? So be yourself. And if you can't be that, be Batman. Yeah. Yeah. Let us pray into this beautiful oneness together. Let's put our feet on the floor. Let's open our hands to the heavens. Let's invite new thought to come in as we say this prayer. Eternal loving presence here in heaven, hallowed be our holy name. Our kingdom has come. Divine will is always being done. On earth may we realize heaven. May we know we are of Source, and our every need and desire is already ours. Source is all there is, and as Source, we are abundant givers and receivers. May we live from the oneness and recognize we are always connected to one another. Allow divine thoughts to express through us and deliver us from the broken thought of separation. For ours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, now and forever. And so it is. Amen.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be.